All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me again tonight and inviting me into your home. We're going to talk about intermittent fasting today. I'm just wondering from the crowd, has anybody ever done intermittent fasting or are you currently doing it now? Does anybody want to share? No? Okay, I wanted to show you before we did the PowerPoint, I wanted to show you these forms. Let me see if here. Okay, so this is a handout that I created for you guys. And if you didn't get it, Jamie told me to tell you that they're actually attached to the fitness calendar. And if you didn't get that, then you can go get a copy of it from the fitness center. Okay, because I want this to help you, to guide you if you actually did want to start an intermittent fasting. It just gives you an example of a meal plan. And here in the green, we're going to talk about each of these things, but here in the green is when you would actually start eating if you were doing a 16-8 plan. And then I gave you an example of a meal plan if you wanted to do an alternate day. Okay, and that's going to make a lot more sense when I actually get through the lecture. And also the handout, it gives you just that tip on how to calculate your calories, because I know that's been a question in the past, how do I do it? And I know I've talked about it in previous presentations, but now you'll actually have it at your fingertips. And then this is a nice guide too to say, okay, fine, you just calculated your calories and just say you calculated it to be 1,200 calories. Well, what does that even mean? So this gives you a guide on how many servings of each of the food groups you can actually have. So you can interchangeably, definitely, you can change things around, but it gives you a nice guide. And when I say here, starch 5, that means you on a 1,200 calorie diet, you can have 5 servings of starch. Well, what does that mean? Well, you have to see what starch you're actually eating and follow the serving sizes. So that's why I gave you that down here. So, 1 slice of bread. Now, what's tricky about bread, you got to read the label because bread now is typically up 1.5 ounces. So imagine if you have a sandwich with 2 slices of bread, which most of us do, right? That's already 3 servings. So then you wonder why you're overeating starch. Well, guess what? Some of us might not be doing that on purpose. It's because the food industry is making everything bigger. If you're doing oatmeal, if you're doing pasta, rice, those kinds of things, half a cup cooked is 1 serving. So again, you use this as a guide. So that's how you would actually use this chart. Okay. All right. All right. So let's go back to the presentation. I'm a little slow at this, so be patient with me. Let me stop share. And then I'm going to share this. Okay. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to talk about intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting isn't a new concept. It's actually been out for quite a while. But, some things in nutrition become very faddish. So intermittent fasting is really popular these days. So I want to see if you're interested in it. And if you are, you need to do it in a healthful way. We're going to define something called autophagy. That's a crazy medical term that just means the cells are eating itself. And that's actually a good thing, actually. So we'll talk about the physiological benefits. I know last week we talked about how fasting can actually increase certain hormones, which really rev up the metabolism. So that's just an added benefit of intermittent fasting. We're going to discuss some challenges and solutions and describe how to really start it if it's something you're interested in starting. So I always like to show you this because, most of us are trying to lose weight. I mean, let's put it this way, 74%, that's the current statistics, 74% of the American population is either overweight or obese. Yeah, so 74%. So that means most of us are trying to, lose weight or diet. Many of us are trying to do that by adding exercise, and that's good. But many of us are also looking at our diet by trying to eat less. And sometimes intermittent fasting allows you to do that because the ultimate goal is to decrease calories by the end of the day, end of the week, actually. All right, so fasting. Well, there is no standardized definition of intermittent fasting, but just know that intermittent fasting involves time restricted eating patterns. And I'm not talking about fasting for religious purposes. I have a lot of clients and patients that follow Ramadan, or they fast for Yom Kippur, or for the Daniel fast. So I have a lot of patients and clients that will fast for religious reasons. But intermittent fasting is fasting purposely to get into better health, either by decreasing calories and losing weight, or by increasing metabolism, or by keeping their blood sugars more steady. There are different protocols, which is a good thing because, one size doesn't fit all. So you have to see actually what works for you. Ooh, are you guys still with me, or did this get, hello? Okay, I just wanted to make sure you guys were
We
still
hear
with me.
you.
You do? Okay. Thanks. Sorry about that. I didn't see anybody on the side. I'm like, oh no, am I talking to myself? Okay, so let me go back. That actually happened to me today in the medical school. It shut down and I'm like, oh no. Okay. All right. So weight loss is the primary goal, but there are risks to doing a fasting, especially if you don't do it the right way. What are some of these risks? Well, dehydration is definitely one of them. And if you're not following your calorie needs, you're either going to go too low, and that's not going to be good because then your body will go through something called metabolic adaptation and you won't lose any weight. Or you think because you're eating in a small period of time, some people are actually overeating. Okay, so now they're eating too many calories. So what are some of the health claims? Well, weight loss, reduces inflammation, improves cardiovascular profile. And I didn't give you all the references to some of this. I just kind of chose some things and picked some things. It has been used to treat pre-diabetes. Now remember, pre-diabetes is a type of insulin resistance where you're not diagnosed with diabetes because your A1C isn't to that level yet, but it's above normal. So just say in a lab report, normal A1C, which is a measure of your blood sugar over a 3-month period, it should be under 5.7%. So if you are a 5.8 or a 5.9 or even a 6.1, that's not quite diagnosed as diabetes yet, but it's indicating that you're headed there if you don't take care of it. So oftentimes what I would do with a patient is we look at their diet, but we also look at their weight, because sometimes weight is a factor. So if I'm able to get that patient to lose a little bit, then a lot of times that insulin resistance and that pre-diabetes actually goes away, and it never progresses to diabetes. So intermittent fasting has been shown to help with that. It does help to improve diabetes. I'm never going to say cured, because once you have a chronic condition like diabetes or kidney issues or high blood pressure, we clinicians like to say remission. We don't like to say cured because that's a tricky word. And things that are related to health, like weight and diet, can always bring back a comorbid condition. So I've had patients that, put their diabetes in remission, but then it comes back for some reason. Maybe they're on a certain medication, maybe they regained weight, maybe that had some other traumatic thing going on in their health. Intermittent fasting has also been shown to lower blood pressure. And that's a really good thing. I got to tell you, we don't give enough attention to blood pressure. It is the silent killer because you don't feel pain typically. If you have really high blood pressure, maybe you'll get a headache, maybe you get dizzy, maybe you get nauseous. But for the most part, if you have high blood pressure, which is defined as anything above 120/80, you don't really feel anything. And in a way, that's not good because we humans respond to pain. So if you're not feeling anything, you're less likely to notice, number one, that anything's wrong, and number two, change anything. It's the same thing with cholesterol. You don't feel your high cholesterol. Your heart does, and eventually your heart will when you have a heart attack. But in the beginning, when it's developing, you don't really feel it. So that's why those are the silent killers. Intermittent fasting has definitely been shown to improve body composition too. So I know in the past we've talked about how important that is. It's not just a number on the scale. It's also, how much you can get your body fat down, because that's what actually causes illness. And then last but not least is it induces this crazy word, this autophagy, which I'll get into in a minute. But I wanted to show you what the intermittent fasting protocols are, because you can kind of decide, okay, yeah, this is something I want to try, but let's see how I can do it. One way you can do it is something called an alternate day fast, the ADF, which means that you're kind of fasting every other day. And in this kind of diet plan, it doesn't mean you're going to a total fast, meaning just, beverages. You can actually still eat, but reduce your calories significantly by like 75%. So that's how some people approach it. Some people approach it by, okay, I'm going to do the alternate day fast. And one day I eat my regular calories. The next day I decrease by 75%. The next day I go back to my regular calories. The next day I might just do clear liquids. So what's the benefit of that? The benefit is your body is like, what? What are you doing? It gets really confused. And in a way, confusing your body is a good thing, because what your body strives to do is get into balance. So if it's always trying to work to get into balance, that means you're burning, you're really metabolic, and it might have to dip into some of your energy stores, like your fat stores. So that's the
Excuse me,
alternate day
Lillian.
fast. Yes, tell me.
Are we supposed to be, are you showing slides?
Yeah, do you not see them?
I'm seeing your face.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let me go back. Let me see. Thank you for mentioning it, because I wouldn't know. Okay, let's go back. Now, do you see it? Do you see it now?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so let's go back to this. Let me just show you what you missed. You didn't miss anything. So this is the slide you missed. That's it. Okay, there we go. Thank you for saying something. Otherwise, I would never know. Okay. All right, so that's the alternate day fast. I have actually tried this alternate day fast, and I did it because I wanted to break my plateau. I was at a certain weight. It was driving me crazy. I wanted to break the plateau. The one thing, and I'm being honest with you guys, because, I tell you guys everything. I have history of anorexia. So I have to be really, really careful about fasting, because to me, fasting means not eating. And that's something that was in my history. And I will continue to not eat until I get sick. Okay. So I figured, all right, let me try this alternate day fast. Hopefully it's not going to, trigger anything in my brain from my past. And it didn't, which was good, because I was allowing myself to eat every other day. So that was really good. And it actually did break my plateau at the time. So this proved actually pretty good for me. So how would you actually do this? Well, you have to decide if you want to do an alternate day fast. You first still have to decide how many calories you eat. You always have to start out with that. How many do you eat? And is that too much or too little? So if you're trying to lose weight, you multiply by 20. If you're trying to stay the same weight, multiply by 30. If you're trying to gain weight, multiply by 30 to 40. Okay, just like that sheet says. So I try to follow a 1,200 calorie diet because I'm always trying to lose some weight. Okay, so like Sunday, I ate 1,200 calories. Monday, because I knew I had a really busy work schedule, I did 75%. I didn't want to go to just beverages because I didn't want to be a complete zombie for my patients. Then on Tuesday, I went back to 1,200 calories. Then on Wednesday, which was a lighter day for me, I decided to do just full liquids. So I did protein shakes and clear liquids. So I got down to probably about 500 calories on that day. And then on Thursday, I went back up to 1,200. And I know that sounds crazy. So the way you have to do it is you do have to track yourself. You have to self-monitor. You have to meal plan. You can't just stand in front of the refrigerator and say, what do I do now? You really have to plan this out. But once you have it planned out, it's very easy to follow. Okay, so that was the alternate day fast. The most popular fasting protocol is actually the time restricted. So what you do with that is you're doing that one every day, but you're deciding at what time period am I going to eat? Am I going to eat for 8 hours, 6 hours, or 4 hours? Which means you are fasting the other hours. Now, I'll allow my clients and patients to drink non-calorie beverages because I'm really worried about hydration. It is very difficult to get, 64 to 74 ounces in 4 hours. That's crazy. So 16-8 means that you're fasting for 16 hours and you're eating within an 8-hour period. Okay, so if I can go back to this, I know I'm going back and forth, making you dizzy here, but I wanted to show you back to this. Okay, so just say I decide I want to do a 16-8. I'm going to fast for 16 hours. I'm going to eat for the 8 hours. That means my first meal is at 11 o'clock. And then I finish eating before 8 o'clock. So this is the green is when I'm eating. Now, a lot of people will say to me, I thought I was supposed to eat breakfast. I get up at like 8 o'clock in the morning. You mean I shouldn't eat anything till 11? That's right. If you're doing an intermittent fasting 16-8, it means your breakfast starts at 11 o'clock. So I still allow my patients to do like a black coffee or a, herbal tea or some water, no juice, that's calories. So it has to be non-calories. So if you're waking up early, you drink non-calories and then you start eating. Okay, so here's a good example. 11 o'clock, maybe you're having an egg white omelet with lots of veggies, low-fat cheese, maybe one slice of whole grain toast, some avocado, and some decaf coffee. All right, so that's like your breakfast. And then at 12 o'clock, I don't eat anything. I'm going to eat my lunch at 1 o'clock, which I kind of keep a light lunch, a Greek yogurt and some berries. And then I don't really have anything for the next hour. 3 o'clock, maybe some trail mix. And then 6 o'clock, because I want to take my time and eat, I'm going to have my baked salmon with asparagus and brown rice. So it's still a very well-balanced meal within my calories. Remember, I eat about 1,200 calories. I didn't put amounts in here, but this is about 1,200 calories. So you're still eating a well-rounded meal, but you're only eating between 11 and 6. Now, for some people that go to bed early, that works because they're like, okay, great. I go to bed at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Okay, perfect. Go to bed, go to sleep. You're fasting. This plan is actually pretty tough for my patients that stay up all night. I have some patients say, my goodness, I stay up for the late movies. I don't go to bed until 1 o'clock in the 1 o'clock in the morning. It is a little hard, I have to say, because then you might be feeling hungry. Okay, so this might not work for everybody, but this could be something you might want to try. Now, certainly if you want to try an intermittent fasting, just make sure that you're physically able to do that. I don't want you to hurt yourself. Okay, this was just the example of the alternate day fasting. So Sunday, I ate my meals. Monday, I was fasting a little bit with the calories, etc. So it's alternate. And this was just an example of, again, a menu. Okay, so it's still well-rounded. All right, so I wasn't eating a bunch of Twinkies, even though I might have wanted to. Okay. All right, can you see my slides? Okay, excellent. All right, so the 18-6 is a little bit stricter. It means that you're fasting for 18 hours and only eating for 6 hours. And then the 20-4 is really strict. That means for 20 hours out of the 24 hours, you're fasting, you're not eating. It's only 4 hours. So this is extremely, extremely strict. This is not something that I would recommend for most of my clients and patients. I really would look at the 16-8. And the other reason why I like this kind of plan too is because I really think we snack too much. Now, I know that there's that other school of thought that we should have several small meals a day. Honestly speaking, in practice, that does not work for weight loss. It really doesn't. And I think a lot of that kind of habit came about because of diabetic medication and insulin, because you can't take diabetic medicine on an empty stomach. So then doctors and nutritionists would say, okay, you have to have 15 grams of carbohydrate with your metformin. So now you're snacking all day. So, which came first, the chicken or the egg, honestly. So what I try to encourage my patients to do is really try not to snack too much. I think we just snack. Okay. This modified fast is just a different example. It's where what you would do is you'd pick 2 days of the week, but not consecutive days. Pick a Monday and a Friday. And on Monday and a Friday, that's when you go really low calorie. So the rest of the week, you're staying your regular calories, but 2 days of the week, you're going really low, like maybe anywhere between 400 to 700 calories. And that's not a lot of food. So it's almost like you are fasting. It's not a lot of food. Okay, I was actually able to do this too, but remember, I come from an anorexic brain. Okay, so I was able to do this too. So when you looked at my diet, I think I had 2 egg whites for my breakfast. I didn't have any toast. It was just egg whites. For lunch, I had a small yogurt, and I think for dinner, I had a piece of plain chicken breast and maybe a couple pieces of broccoli. It really wasn't much. But the good thing is that's only twice a week. Okay. And then there's this weekly 1-day fasting, just once a week, just pick 1 day to fast. And that would be completely fast, completely. Just have your beverage, your non-calorie beverage, so you stay hydrated. And then I stuck this one on here, even though I don't really agree with it. But when you look at different protocols, they even included a 10-day juice fast. I don't count that as fasting. I really don't. And I'm really not a big juicer. And I think you guys know that because I think it racks up calories. So I don't really like this one too much. It's not my favorite. Okay. All right. So before we go on, any questions about the protocols? Which one should you try? Well, it would be one that you think that you could do. That's where you would start. you might want to just start out with maybe a modified fast or maybe an alternate day fast, whichever one you think you can fit in your lifestyle. Okay.
All right, what
Tell me.
if you don't want to lose weight,
Yeah.
but you want to maintain your weight
Nice.
and build muscle?
Yeah, great question. So for you, probably what I would do is I would do a time restricted fast because you're eating every day, but you're still within your calorie needs. So if you're trying to maintain your weight, you'd still have to meet all of the calories that you need every day, but within a smaller amount of time. Okay. That's what I would do. Yep. Very good question. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. All right. So choosing the right eating pattern will definitely benefits. You might be restricting energy, but just like Ann said, maybe her goal, it's not to lose weight. It's just to get into better health and build muscle. So that would mean probably the time restricted is good for her because she's eating every day. She's just eating within a certain time period. But for people that are trying to lose weight, doing an alternate day fast, sometimes that works because by the end of the week, you've decreased your calories, right? Now, what are some of the challenges? Well, this word here, ad lib, it's a Latin word. It just means, ad lib means we don't put any restriction on eating, but you have to be careful with that. And that's where I see the mistake is. People are eating too many calories within the 8 hours. So they haven't restricted their food choices or their portion sizes. So you have to be careful, whatever your goals are, whether it's to maintain your weight or lose weight. Okay. The other thing I might see is protein malnutrition. And I see that because some people might resort to eating a lot of salads and a lot of vegetables because that's low calorie and you're trying to, decrease your calories within a small amount of time. So now you're not eating enough protein. So that wouldn't be good either. If your diet is not well-rounded, you could develop a vitamin and mineral deficiency, and that's never a good thing either. Dehydration, of course, is what I can see, so be careful with that. And those people that are on insulin or oral hypoglycemics, for diabetes, you can experience reactive hypoglycemia because you might not be eating periodically, right? So the medication is still working and dropping you. So if you do have diabetes today and you are on any kind of diabetic medicine and you want to try intermittent fasting, you have to talk to your doctors and your, diabetic educators to adjust your medication around your new eating pattern. Okay. Avoid in populations with special needs or pose a higher risk of adverse events. So what would I say here? My pregnant ladies, no, I don't want them to do intermittent fasting, not while you're pregnant or breastfeeding. Growing kids, no, this isn't a good plan for you either. Somebody that's recovering from a traumatic event where you need a lot of calories, no, this probably isn't the right diet for you either. Okay. People that don't understand, might have a cognitive or education issue where they don't quite understand how to eat right within the time period. That just means I might need to educate you a little bit more, but it's not really something that I would recommend. And the last but not least, the intermittent fasting diet is actually not endorsed by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. The AND is my governing body. That's my professional association that gives me the do's and the don'ts. So I can still go outside the scope of that because there's a lot of evidence to show that intermittent fasting can be a very healthy diet for the select person. All right, so what is this autophagy? This is how you can get into better health if we can induce autophagy. It means that your cells are self-eating. Okay, what does that even mean? Well, your body, as you know, your cells are constantly dying and regenerating. And what your cells do is they look for things that don't look right. And when they see something that doesn't look right, they kind of break it down and self-eat it. They destroy it before it causes any kind of problem in your body. So what's nice about it is that it maintains this nice homeostasis, that physiological balance. Okay. So this is just a nice kind of picture. It always reminds me of Pac-Man. That's what it kind of reminds me of. Because when you look at the cells, they have something called a lysosome. And this is actually a part of an organelle that looks for cells that are dying, looks for, cancer cells, looks for different things to break them down. And when it finds it, it eats it. And it creates, this little autophagosome and then destroys it. So this is just like a physiological process, which is kind of cool. I won't get into this. This is more medical, medical school, but there are all different types of autophagy. But why is it so important? Why is it so healthy? Well, there are lots of different things that actually can influence autophagy, including what you eat, how much you eat, how much stress you're under, your physiological health, if you have infections, how much oxygen you're actually breathing, and even the cell density. So autophagy has been shown in the literature to help to reduce the risk of cancer. It helps to build up that innate immune system, and that's a good thing. It helps to reduce something called cardiomyopathy. Cardiomyopathy means that you're having a problem with the muscle of your heart. It helps to slow down the aging process. That's always a good thing. Helps to decrease infectious diseases, helps to reduce fatty liver, helps to reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes and neurodegenerative diseases. So autophagy is a good thing. It's your body's way of preserving energy and killing the things that it doesn't need, okay? Now, there's a relationship between intermittent fasting and autophagy because the research shows that if you fast for like 24 hours, even 24 to 48 hours, you help your body to induce that autophagy. So that's good. It's like you can help dictate, hey, I need you to start cleaning up my cells and getting me healthier. So that's really, really great. What we also see with calorie restriction is that it gives your GI tract a rest. And that's a good thing too. Let's rest a little bit because your body's constantly working. So if you're constantly eating, it's spitting out all of these oxyradicals. Your body constantly has to use the energy, and there's always the byproducts of that. So let your body rest. Now, is there an on and off switch? Well, we know that when you eat, you induce hormone secretion, especially insulin. So once insulin is secreted, it turns off autophagy. If you fast, you slow down insulin. I can't say you turn it off, but you slow it down. And then what you do is you turn up autophagy. So all this is actually saying is that, look, if we reduce our intake, that means we're going to reduce the amount of hormones that we need to secrete, which means we tell your body, look, clean house. When you eat, you instigate the hormones for digestion, and then hopefully you're eating the proper calories so you don't gain weight. Okay, so it really is a nice balance. And then this is just some of the research that shows 8 hours for some, longer for others. This is just showing that the research for some showed that 8 hours of fasting actually helped to induce autophagy, where in other groups you actually have to fast a little bit longer. Research has shown that the autophagy can protect against Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease as well. You know, when you think about what Alzheimer's disease is, it's a buildup of plaque on your brain. It always makes me think of buildup of plaque of your arteries, right? So I think the more we're eating and the less rest we get, we could be building up these byproducts. Now, cancer is very multifactorial. Okay, so cancer is usually turned on. We have these cancer genes in our body. They're called proto-oncogenes. That means every single one of us we have cancer genes in our body. It's just that they're turned off right now. What turns them on? Well, we know what turns them on, right? Cigarette smoke, alcohol, drugs, environmental pollutants, GMOs, things like that. So what autophagy does, tries to get ahead of the game. If it sees that something's turning on that shouldn't be turned on, it really tries to get at it before it does. So that's one of the reasons why trying to, starve a little bit is actually good for us. And then with the insulin resistance and diabetes, what is diabetes? Well, diabetes means that you're just not making enough insulin. In type 1 diabetes, you're not making any. So what we want to do is try to protect the beta cells of the pancreas. That's the area that produces insulin. So when autophagy actually works correctly, the beta cells of the pancreas, it becomes damaged and eventually stop producing insulin. So autophagy can actually be that preventative. Okay, again, it's resting the organs. We've even found that autophagy helps with muscle atrophy. Now, what is muscle atrophy? Well, as we get older, we start to lose muscle mass. That's just a natural part of aging. So that's why we should all be doing our resistant training and we should be having a nice, well-rounded diet. Well, what we're also finding is that if you do a little bit of fasting, that can actually help with that atrophy of muscle. And remember, not just are we losing muscle, we're also losing strength. Okay, so giving that autophagy a chance to keep our muscles strong, there we go. This is kind of neat too. Autophagy can counteract bone loss by recycling the dysfunctional bone cells as well. And again, when you look at it, your body is constantly dying and building up, dying and building up. As we get older, the building up goes slower. That's the aging process. So when you look at bone turnover, we are constantly turning over bone cells by breaking down calcium, and then hopefully you're eating enough, you build it back up. It goes around in a cycle, and it's dictated by hormones. So if we're able to slow down certain cycles or give things a rest, that's when it helps us. Heart health, we can renew damaged proteins and organelles in the heart. That's really great. The one thing is, if you damage heart muscle, it doesn't regenerate. There are certain parts of our body that don't regenerate. If you cut your finger, you'll have this cut, but then by the end of the week, it's all done, right? And then you might have a scar or not. But if you damage your brain, if you damage your spinal cord, you damage your heart, it's not going to regenerate. So all we can do is really kind of regenerate different proteins and that sort of thing. The other thing that induces autophagy is the keto diet. Now, of course, the keto diet is not something I really encourage, especially not for long term, but the keto diet has also shown to lower insulin and actually induce autophagy as well. Okay. There are some foods that can actually do it. So how great is that? We can double whammy. We can double whammy by doing intermittent fasting and including these foods in our diet. So black tea, coffee, blueberries, cacao, and I'm always telling you, make sure it's at least 70%. It's a plant. Cinnamon, citrus bergamot, which I don't often see, green tea. MCT oil stands for medium chain triglyceride oils, and those are also found in some coconut oils as well. Olive oil, pomegranates, peanuts, unless you have an allergy, red grapes, red wine, but remember, keep the wine to moderation, and turmeric and curry powder. So if you include some of these things in your diet, wow, that's inducing autophagy. That's inducing the body to get rid of bad things and keeping things in balance. Okay, so I just wanted to expound a little bit. So coffee, whether it's caffeinated or not, actually activates autophagy in your muscle, also your liver, your heart, and other vital organs. Of course, this experiment was done in mice. Red wine, we know, contains an antioxidant called resveratrol, and resveratrol actually also helps to induce autophagy. I would just like to mention that red grapes also contain resveratrol. So if you don't drink wine, it doesn't mean you have to start. Green tea is really, really healthy for us. It does have caffeine in it, but it's interesting. It does have things that actually counterbalance that caffeine, but it has a lot of polyphenols. These are antioxidants. And look at this, it contains about 4,000 different active compounds that can actually help our health. And it does induce that autophagy, so that's always a good thing. Olive oil has been shown to have anti-cancer properties. So we know it's part of a Mediterranean diet, but it can also induce the autophagy. So that's why some people will ask me, well, how does it reduce cancer risk? Well, this is how it does that. It induces autophagy. Turmeric is pretty fun. I know some of us might take turmeric pills. You know, the problem with that is I just don't know the right dosage to recommend for you. So I'd rather you eat it. But you know, it is a very strong kind of flavor. You have to actually like that. I happen to love it. But turmeric definitely works better in combination with black pepper because, you know, you need things to work together. But it does, again, increase autophagy. Berberine, you know, this is found in a lot of different supplements, but it's also part of barberry. Honestly, I've never seen barberry. It's in golden seal as well. So it really is in supplements. So if you're going to do an herbal supplement, just check with your pharmacist before you do that. All right, so how would you start? Well, you can eat from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then allow your 14 hours. And I kind of already went over this. You still look at your calories, you still menu plan, but you're just having longer periods of time with not eating and not snacking. Okay. Make sure you hydrate though. So that's the one thing you can do when you're fasting. Just make sure your your beverages are non-calorie. So that doesn't mean have a latte. Okay. That means have black coffee. Okay. Because if you have a latte, that could be 200 calories. So that's not really fasting. And then this is just another menu to show the 400 to 700 calories. It's really not much. This is actually one of my menus that I did. I did the egg whites, and I usually throw some spinach in there, 3-ounce grilled chicken breast. I had a small salad. It was a little small side salad, and then dinner I had. So it's not much. All right, so some important concepts, if you really did want to follow this, make sure you start hydrated. That means the day before, make sure you have some good fluid intake. Definitely start slow. You know, you don't have to race. If you need to modify it yourself, modify it. That's okay. If you don't feel well doing it, you have no energy, you get a stomach ache, you're getting headache, you're not feeling good, you're getting grouchy. Well, guess what? Stop it then. Don't do it. That means it's not right for you, or maybe you just need extra guidance from me. You can continue to exercise, but certainly use common sense. So if you're on an alternate day fast and you're eating, 400 calories, maybe that shouldn't be a super rigorous exercise day because, you're probably going to be burning more than you're eating, and then you're not going to be feeling so good. Definitely track your weight and body composition. The whole point of doing this is you have to track yourself. You can't assume any of this is working unless you can actually see the numbers. And then I just wanted to end by showing you how I actually implemented this in one of my patients. He's an attorney, so doing a fast actually really worked for him because of his heavy schedule in the morning in the court. So he started out about 400 pounds. He was in pretty good shape though in terms of his health. He did have something called obstructive sleep apnea, but not to the point where he had a machine. His wife was like, yeah, he just snores like crazy. Okay. He didn't smoke. He did like to exercise, but he really wasn't very consistent with it. Okay, so when I first saw him, he was about 407 pounds. His first visit with the doctor, he was 400 pounds. And then when he knew that he was going to come and see me, I guess he kind of gorged a little bit. So he gained 7 pounds. So I started out by just putting him on a 2,200 calorie diet. Okay. I calculated his calories. He needed about, he needed definitely less than this, but he was eating almost 4,000 calories. So what I did was I kind of cut it in half, and he started to do some physical activity. Okay. So he did that, let's see, for, a couple of weeks, and he was able to lose some weight. So he was happy. But he said, look, I want to start on intermittent fasting. Is that something that I can do? I think that's just really going to help with my schedule. So I said, all right, let's start doing it. And we also let him start using the elliptical as well. So he went from, again, this was, in about a month, he went from 396 to 379. So he had lost 17 pounds. He was really, really happy about that. And then what I did was I really wanted to hone in on the exercise. He was really starting to enjoy that a lot. He was going swimming, he was walking the dog, he was using his elliptical. So he was still on intermittent fasting. He got down to 361. And then when I saw him back in June, he had gotten down to 339. I mean, how beautiful is that? From 407 to 339. But at this point, he wanted to just get off of intermittent fasting and just go back to just a regular eating pattern. And I said, well, that's cool. You can still do that, but just make sure you're still at your 2,200 calories. So he did, and he was doing good. He was doing good. He was doing good. I mean, look how low he got, down to 291, 285. He was doing really well. At this point, I was looking at his body composition as well. I couldn't do it when he was in the 400s just because the machine that I had wouldn't have given an accurate measurement. So he was doing good. Let's see, where was he? Let me just see. He was at 285, and he got to 274, 271. I mean, look at him. He was doing great, all the way down to 249. So imagine that. I helped get this gentleman down from 407 pounds to 249 pounds. Look at his body fat. His body fat down to a 29%, which was really, really great. He was building his muscle mass up too, when you look at these numbers. He did lose some, yep. But then what happened was, as you can see here, we kind of lost contact a little bit because he's like, okay, yeah, I'm doing great. I don't need you anymore. Okay, great. That's all right. He added swimming, adding yoga. Okay, he's great. But then unfortunately, the next time I saw him, he did reach out to me because he's like, uh-oh, I'm starting to gain weight back. So that's when I kind of reestablished care for him. Okay, so this is just an example of how you can include intermittent fasting based on your lifestyle. It doesn't have to be something that you do every single day of your life, although I can tell you that very strict intermittent fasters keep that as their dietary pattern, but you can use this intermittently between calorie restriction, just everyday eating, or intermittent fasting. So it really can help some people. All right, so what's the take-home message? Eating less calories is definitely helpful. Yep. An eating pattern that can help us decrease calories is by intermittent fasting, unless you're trying to maintain your weight or gain weight. Then you still have to start with, how many calories do I need for my goals? Okay. And if you do start this eating pattern, definitely start slowly. Maybe just bring it up to your doctor and say, look, do you think this is something that I can follow? If you're on medications, make sure you talk to them about it, because some medications are depending on food that you're eating. So that, just be smart about it. Okay. All right. What questions do you have about intermittent fasting? Do you think it's something that you would like to do? Are you afraid? Are you excited about it? You want to try it? What do you want to do?
I have a couple of questions.
Tell me.
Well, I'll start out by saying I'm a little skeptical about this.
Okay.
But two things. Let's say you're doing intermittent fasting, and say you have a pretty heavy exercise routine.
Yeah.
And you work out in the morning.
Okay.
How does that work if you're fasting in the morning? And the other question to go along with that is, does this mean you can never go out with friends and have dinner past 6 o'clock and, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So what you could do, maybe you can just modify your fast and do an alternate day fast. And what you would do, since you exercise in the morning, is you eat in the morning. So maybe you're starting your intake at 8 o'clock in the morning. Okay, but that means you're cutting yourself off. Okay, so if you're doing 8 and 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 o'clock in the afternoon that you're done. So you're eating dinner at 3 o'clock. So again, if it's not something that fits into your lifestyle, then it's not something that you would do. You know, that's okay. It doesn't mean that there isn't a different eating pattern that wouldn't work for you. Another thing that you can do is on days that you're not exercising, maybe that could be the day that you're just going low calorie. That could be a type of fasting as well. So instead of doing your usual calories, you're just really down, have less calories on that particular day.
Are you a proponent of eating while you're fasting? Like, do you say, well, if you feel that you can do it and it's not dangerous, or you think that's individual, or?
Oh, it's definitely individual. It's definitely not for everyone. Definitely not.
Okay.
Intermittent fasting. And, you know, even my patients that are fasting for religious reasons, we're always saying, look, if you're not feeling well, God will forgive. I mean, that's in the Quran, that's in the Bible. Okay. There are certain instances where fasting is not appropriate, and that's okay too. So it's definitely not for everyone, but it's just more information that you can explore. You know, how can I actually manipulate my calories? Because if your goal is to try to lose weight or change your body composition, and you're doing what you're doing and it's not working, it just means, all right, I got to try a different technique. What else can I do? So maybe this can just be an option, even if it's just you're doing the 2 days. Like that's what I did too. I just did 2 days of the week. I did a Monday and a Friday. You know, maybe those are down days where you're not really doing a lot of exercise. Okay.
I mean, yeah, I'm just thinking about going out to dinner, and
Oh yeah, well
like
that's
you
true.
couldn't do this. You would be cheating all the time if you went out to dinner
Yeah,
with
it's very
people.
true. You have to be very disciplined to do something like this, definitely. But it doesn't mean you can't go out to eat. If you decided, okay, I'm going to do a 16-8 and I'm going out with the girlfriends at, 5 o'clock, it just means, try to eat early, try to eat earlier. So you can figure it out, but it does require some figuring out, definitely. But definitely not for everybody. Oh. Yeah, but those are good questions, good concerns. What else? That's why, diet is personal. It really is. An eating pattern is personal. What you're eating is personal. It's why one size doesn't fit all. It's all about, kind of taking a survey of what you're currently doing and then making some sort of meaningful change in a way that you can do it in your lifestyle. So that's what makes it so much fun. And it's something that I can't dictate to a patient or a client. Yeah, I can give you a meal plan that would be totally ridiculous if you're looking at it and saying, well, I don't eat any of this food and this isn't something that I would do. So my technique when I work with a lot of my clients and patients is that you're telling me how you want to do it. I'm just a facilitator. I'm going to say to you, you know what, that might not be the healthiest, or you know what, that's a really great start. But if you think you're going to lose 50 pounds doing that, that's not true either. So I'm kind of like the facilitator. So if you had said to me, hey, Lil, just like you did, I exercise in the morning, I want to go out to dinner. How do I fit this plan in? That's when you and I would come to a compromise and say, okay, what are your down days? Are you willing to just do maybe a 700 calorie diet one day of the week? And you might say, well, is that going to do anything? I don't know. Let's see. It's actually going to show a calorie deficit by the end of the week. So maybe we can start there and then take it from there. Okay. So, it's something that we can play around with and explore if a client is willing to do that. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Excellent. 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 What other questions do you have? All right. Very nice.
I have
Tell
one
me.
more question.
Tell me, Susie. Go for it.
I'm a research physiologist by background.
Oh, wonderful.
That's part of the reason why I'm skeptical. Um, one of the, I was not involved in this study, but I observed it from, it was being done by a group that was working, you know, in the same facility where I was working. And
Sure.
they were working with morbidly obese people.
Yeah.
And they basically starved them.
Right.
And they gave them a cup of sugar and the juice of one lemon daily. So they
Wow.
basically got to make lemonade.
Wow.
But they were starving them.
What
And
calorie intake would you know?
I don't know what the calorie, like I said, it wasn't my project.
Right.
I don't
Right.
know whatever a cup of sugar is and one lemon, you know,
Mhm.
it's not much.
Mhm.
And then they would refeed them, but they gave them
Yeah.
calorie controlled diets. And I don't
Yeah.
know what they were, but these people
Right.
they were all morbidly obese.
Right. Right.
So they had plenty of fat to draw from in their body.
Right.
And they looked at their metabolism, and what they found was that when they starved them, when they were eating the sugar and lemons,
Yeah.
their metabolic rates dropped way down. And this is a published study
Yeah.
someplace.
Yeah.
And when they refed them, their
Mhm.
metabolic rates rose up. And
Right.
so I'm a strong believer in the idea that when you wake up in the morning, your body is in starvation mode and you
Mhm.
need to give it a little food to run on,
Mhm.
or your metabolism is going to say, okay, wait a minute, there's no food here. We have to slow down because we have to make sure that we conserve some of this stuff that we have, because we don't know when we're going to get food again.
Right.
And so that makes me very, very skeptical about the fasting. And can you
Mhm.
address that?
Mhm.
Because it doesn't compute to me.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's a great, great question. So, you know, I work with morbidly obese patients too. So we do have that metabolic adaptation. And if you do look at the study from The Biggest Loser, you know, that show, The Biggest Loser, we do see that patients that lost tremendous amount of weight, they still have that metabolism dip down, despite the fact that they're building muscle back up. The only problem is when you look at that kind of population, they already have genetic aberrations as well. They're, you know, they're not just their muscle mass and their fat tissue, but their leptin, their hormones, their CCK, the G, all of that is different. So that's a very special population group. You know, when you look at the Minnesota starvation experiment, where they took normal weighted men and they starved them. What was interesting about them is they didn't go through metabolic adaptation. They went through fat adaptation, which was really cool. What was happening is that they gained weight, but all in fat until they got to a normal weight and they were able to bring the fat down. So anatomy and physiology is just really very fascinating. So I do agree with you that metabolisms are slow, right? So now that you're fasted, it's slowing down, you're not feeding anything, but you are, because if you wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning and then you're eating at 11, who is to say that the 11 o'clock mark isn't going to give you that little rev? And you're still keeping within your caloric needs for the day. It's just that eating pattern has changed. So that's why some of that research is showing that it has been helping to monitor and regulate that insulin and increase that autophagy. So, and change epinephrine, which actually raises metabolism as well. So I get the two schools of thought. I absolutely do. You know, eat, you fasted, rev up your metabolism, or you're going to rev up your metabolism, but just not right away. You're going to start a little bit later in the day. Okay. So that's why, you know, it's personal. We would try it. If it didn't work, we would try something else. Does that make sense?
Yes, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you see an actual specific benefit from exercising while fasting?
I see people bonk, that's for sure. They just don't get a lot of activity or energy to do it. So that's why if a patient, remember fasting, I'm not talking about fasting where they're not eating anything. I'm talking about now they're designing their exercise activity around when they're eating. Okay. If they're not eating at all and just having liquids, those would be days that they're doing lower and less activity. So they're not doing their same activity on those days. But, you know, if a patient is still, a client is still having, you know, 1,200 to 2,200 calories in a day, they're just designing that activity around when they're eating. Okay. So my lawyer friend wasn't exercising on the elliptical at 6 in the morning. He was doing it later in the afternoon when he did have that nourishment to support the activity.
Mhm.
Yep.
So you don't recommend necessarily exercising during the fasting period. You recommend
Yeah.
working it so that you're not doing that.
Yeah, correct. Because I think timing of the macronutrients is really important too for metabolism. And that was a lecture a couple of weeks ago, right? Depending upon your activity, you want to support that activity with physiology, right? So if you're very aerobic, you got to have your carbs. You're pumping iron, you want to have your protein and do your carbs later. So there's timing of meals that come into play too. Yep. Nice question, Susie. Thank you. Love it.
Sure.
All right, you guys, any other questions that can inspire thinking? All right, well, thank you again for your time. And like I said, if you wanted those handouts, they're attached to the calendar, or you can just go to the fitness center and have them printed out for you. Okay. All right, have a really great night. I'll see you at the end of February. See you
Thank you
later.
very much.